I'm a Bravo. I'm a walking EMP. I'm sorry.
Welcome back to another great episode of Secured Hot Podcast. As always, I am your host, Danny Caballero, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you the team behind Corsair Racing. All Green Berets with a lone tack P, who's not with us today, but today we have Pete, Blake, and Chris. Gentlemen, welcome.
Yeah, thanks
so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Really excited to be here.
Dude, let's get right into it. Oh, God, I'm still catching up my breath. Oh, God, that was hilarious. I think, Chris, you had the most perfect 18 Bravo moment I have seen in a long time.
Can you see me now?
You are good to go.
All
We
right.
got you, brother.
God.
Oh, man.
Christmas.
Gentlemen, take it away, please. Give us an introduction.
Yeah, so this is Blake. We essentially put together a Corsair Racing. We're super excited to be here and just get a moment of your time to tell you and the crew like what we're doing and where we're going and what our goals are, and hopefully, refine our vision a little bit as we sit and kind of have a roundtable discussion.
Yeah, man, like I was saying earlier, from what I've seen in all my research and all this time trying to bring great support and great content that advocates for not just our soft guys, but our military professionals, veterans, and first responders. What you guys have is something I have not seen anywhere else. Like, this is pure fucking gold. This is exactly what we need after we transition. We are used to having a mission and a purpose, being able to look at that whiteboard and see that hit time, that timeline, be like, fuck yeah, we're going to go through all this bullshit of admin training and train up, and then we're going to get on that fucking bird and we're going into a mission. When you get on the outside, what I've realized is you enjoy that initial few months of being able to breathe and rehabilitate and get back into things. But by the time you have a new job, by the time you've settled down in domestic life, you realize, I need a fucking adventure. We are bred and molded into this life of fucking being adventure seekers. And that's not downplaying war. War is real. There's consequences. But yeah, it's an adventure. It's something that takes you into a world, realize that there's a greater fucking wider you out there. And you kind of miss that. And what you guys are doing is just that. Take it away. Tell us about this amazing mission you guys got.
Yeah, I actually, but before we kind of get into like the details of the mission and the vision, I kind of want to echo that sentiment because it's not really where this idea started. It wasn't like, hey, let's give veterans a mission. This started largely because we learned about this thing in the sport and wanted to do something epic. That was generally the selfish motive there. However, that the race, the organizing body, I think they're going by the world's toughest row now, or Atlantic campaigns. They bring these teams in and all of them raise money for charity. So we were like, cool, great opportunity to raise money for charity as well. And it actually started with the idea that, hey, there's veteran support groups everywhere. Like, I would guess that 80% of all citizens in the United States could name a veteran support, like Wounded Warrior Foundation or something like that. And so we didn't want to go that route. We didn't want to be just another veteran group that screams veteran to try to get support. However, the development of this was and is taking place during our transitions out. So I'm going to speak on my own behalf here. I was getting out when we started this. And then I started to realize, and I'm not going to throw Chris under the bus because we brought Chris on, I really started to see it is, yeah, you give guys a mission that is something epic, right? Like going out on the X in Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever we go is high threat, high risk. And everybody wants that. That's what, like, we begged for that. If we were on the teams, we competed to get that mission. And so I started to see, like, hey, if you give a guy a mission and a target and the X, they're going to start running with that concept and they start building up training plans. And we just kind of know how to naturally progress towards the X. And so, when I first met Chris, Blake and Chris have known each other for a long time. It was like, hey man, do you want to row across the ocean? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm down. Right. Green Beret move for sure. But then watching how, his NCO kind of started stepping in He was like, we need to do X, Y, and Z, task addition standards. And I started to reflect on this because I didn't have the best time getting out of the military. It was extremely stressful. It was way harder than I thought it would be. Regardless of all the groups and clubs out there, it's still hard and stressful. So I kind of realized that, hey, I'm a member of all these, I call them clubs now. It's essentially like this club that helps you transition and that club that helps you transition and this networking club, but none of them were providing something tangible that helped me achieve my personal goals. They were providing great networking opportunities, and I met a lot of great people, and it's more of like a refreshing motivator that like, hey man, you're not totally fucked. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But what we have found here is you give a team a mission and they're going to naturally turn into an ODA again, which is what our 4-man group has done. We've turned into an ODA. Chris is the team sergeant. We've got like the impromptu chief of staff team leader, like our JTAC classic tech dude. And now we're training for a mission, and it's become something that excites me to the point where I think about it every single day. And that's just me.
Fuck yeah.
And we would love to give that back to other veterans that are going through the same thing. And with that, I mean, Blake or Chris, if you want to kind of talk about mission, vision, values, anything like that, by all means, jump in.
Yeah, just a tag team on like getting out. My last deployment was 4 months ago, and now I'm on that 1-year retirement track for my 20 years. And honestly, like, even the moment I stepped foot back in the States, I was like, dude, what's next? Like, I have no clue. Other than, just getting out and then finding something to do. Like, really, it was like, man, I don't know what my purpose is. Like, this is very uncomfortable. It's the first time I've ever been super uncomfortable like that in my whole Army career.
Absolutely.
So then, like, getting into this, Blake, he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes. And, like, just the process, just like you were talking about with, like, putting stuff on the whiteboard, like, knocking out tasks, like, things that necessarily aren't, like, the coolest things in the world, but it's, like, getting us to, that X. Like, we're, like, doing the same things we did in the team room. I was telling Pete the other day, it's like, hey, man, this is, like, the ODA right here. It's, like, us four.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing. Like, it's not sexy when you're like, everybody shits on leadership, like the captain, the warrant, and the team starts like, oh, look, the fucking guys are doing planning again. Yeah. When you're doing it on your own for your own mission, it is the most empowering thing ever. Because I tell you what, like this endeavor, like, I had a couple co-hosts, but they all like, hey, if they're not married to the idea, if they're not married to the mission, people just fall off. And it's like when you look at the whiteboard and you see, oh shit, that's my endeavor. This is my fucking mission. And you think back to all the damn times you're doing MDMP and you're like, oh God, it sucks. And then you're like, fuck yeah, it's worth it. I'm learning, I'm doing something with it. It's like it becomes empowering, man. And that's what's so beautiful about this team. Everybody speaks the same source code. Everybody is on the same level. And it's like, dude, just looking at this team on the website, I'm like, holy fucking shit. These dudes could conquer the fucking world. Like, these dudes could literally, all they have to do is focus on their objective, and this shit's gonna go really fucking far. Like,
I think something that's really cool, and I'll talk mission and vision and values and stuff, but kind of talking about the tasks that we're each knocking out, like, I'm being stressed more doing some of this stuff than some of the stuff I was doing in the military, because now I'm like, all right, so now we're putting together like finance packages and we're registering with the IRS and we're figuring out exactly how we're going to run these different accounts and, figuring out what fundraising looks like. Chris has done an inordinate amount of work to put together like essentially a schedule of events for us to go on tour. This stuff is all like really stretching, and it's not consuming my life. But it's definitely like providing a lot of purpose in what would be a void in this transition period of my life. So it's really cool. I'm going to talk real briefly about kind of where this came from. So Pete and I originally started, I saw him really struggling in his transition. I finished my last deployment back in October and then started to transition out. And it's just been a really challenging thing for me. We've always had the idea of rowing across the ocean. But we realized like more and more that we did this, like, holy cow, there might be a real amazing opportunity to provide value hate saying that, but to give something to guys that are struggling, right? Like
Yeah.
not every special operations guy is going to struggle getting out. That's the reality. Like some guys can do it super seamlessly. They go to grad school, they crush it. Other guys are a little bit more married to the purpose and really struggle with it. And so what we're trying to provide is a platform for guys that do struggle with the transition, and are looking for the camaraderie, brotherhood, and the mission to drive towards to kind of help them ease that like 8 to 12 month transition. So our vision is we're fielding 8 to 10 teams a year. These are special operations guys looking to expand into like law enforcement, and fire department dudes as well, depending on like what kind of traction we get. But we're fielding 8 to 10 teams a year for short range expeditions, and then 1 to 2 teams a year for a long range ocean crossing expedition. And here's what it looks like, man. Hey, you're getting out. I know it's going to be challenging. I know it's going to be difficult, but like go through this assessment with us. Let's see if you're a good fit. Okay, you're a good fit. Here's what your training program looks like. This is what we expect you to do from a nutrition perspective. You and your cohort or your team are going to rally behind a charity that you guys want to raise for, and then you're going to carry the Courser banner forward. Pete, Chris, and I, we're going to push all the logistics. We'll help you with everything you need. Obviously, we got the boat on hand. And you're going to drive towards that mission for 8 months to 12 months. And then it's going to culminate in you getting on a boat and you're rowing from Tampa to Houston, or you're rowing from Charleston, South Carolina to Miami, or Fort Lauderdale to Bimini, or, Manhattan to Montauk, whatever whatever the team kind of wants to do, and where their network is. And so we're really passionate about it. And we think it's kind of an alternative approach to transition support that kind of fills the gap for guys like us who want to continue to give and are passionate about service and finding their purpose in life's next chapter, without sounding too cheesy, but that's kind of it.
Not at all. It is an absolute beautiful endeavor, because as you transition, you tend to forget all the impossible things you've done. You discount, you went through selection. Well, that's no big deal. You discount your training. You discount the deployments you've been on. And some of our guys have been through some unbelievable, unimaginable combat situations. And I've also been through some amazing schools, and they discount it. Whatever, that doesn't matter. It's no big deal. Everybody going through this. It's like, no, dude, like wake up. Like you've done amazing, incredible things.
Yeah.
And if you're still challenged, like take this challenge on and have that fresh perspective. Yeah.
Danny, I think that's what I really struggle with, right? Like I'll speak from a personal perspective. It's like, man, I loved what I did. I believed in the mission. Like I'm so passionate about national security, and the men that I, worked with were just incredible, and they challenged me every day. And it was like, okay, so what's the future look like? Oh God, it looks like this. Yeah. It's going to look like this. And I think at the heart of Courser, and Pete, Chris, and I say this all the time, is this idea that the most important things you did and most relevant things and your service, that stuff is not what you did when you were 25, 28, or 30 years old, right? That stuff is now. It's like in the future. Like you were built for a purpose, and I'll be damned if the most important things I did were things I did when I was 25, 28, 31, right? I'll be damned. And so that's what we stand on, is like we're going to continue to drive and do amazing, incredible things. And I'll be damned if it's the stuff that I did in the past. It's not how I'm going to live my life.
No.
That's exactly actually.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, but just on that thread, just moved into my house like last week. And so I got my TV unboxed last night after not having a TV for a couple of weeks. And I watched a movie on Netflix called Ranger. And it was really just a guy that was in regiment as a private in the early 2000s discussing his career. And I was thinking about it because, you talked about kind of you run the race while you're in, and you just don't ever really have time to reflect on what you've done. But when I was watching this, I was like, oh my God, dude, these are kids. What we did when we were kids is absolutely wild. And I think what Blake just said is kind of the foundational problem with guys like us getting out. Is like you did have all this epic stuff that you did, and it's it was very meaningful inherently. Service, if you wear the uniform, it's extremely easy to identify the purpose you serve in the world, regardless of what your MOS is, regardless of if you're in special operations. And yeah, I want to be able to. I think the key to success, if you're struggling, is find that when you get out, it exists. And well, I mean, it exists to an extent. What we're providing is an extension of that. And the other thing that has kind of come to fruition just on this project is now guys like Chris or Blake or myself, we're managing a P&L. We're running an organization. We have job titles that are appealing on resumes. And all of those aspects of the transition would be beneficial to the people that will do the race, because they're not just going to train up and execute a race. They're going to run this nonprofit, which is essentially a business. And so you're essentially an ODA, like we said, but you're getting real world civilian credentials and experience. And at the same time, giving back. And there's an inherent purpose in that. Like, we're going to donate as much money as we can to the charity that we chose. And that, to me, is how you extend that, lifelong savagery that we've accomplished by going through the military, the training, the deployments, the tough experiences. And I know Chris can speak to that for sure. He's done a lot more time overseas than Blake or myself. But what we did when we were young is wild. I mean, absolutely not. I was in this video, they were showing the classic night vision video of guys walking off the ramp for a static line jump, which was like, that was everyday life for us. We would get frustrated by like, oh man, we're gonna have to wake up so early for that. But looking back, like, dude, that's like 1,200 feet. You know what I mean? Like, that is so dangerous and gnarly. And we did it all to the point where it became the norm in our lives, and we experienced adrenaline always. Yeah. And, that's what we want to be able to provide to guys. And you're not the only one that's talked about. I've heard other podcasts, Andy Stump, like, all the big names out there talk about this void that you are always looking to fill when you get out. And it's largely tied to purpose. It's largely tied to adrenaline. It's tied to like identity is a big part of it. And I can say from personal experience, this has filled that void and then some for me at the time being. And frankly, I'm kind of nervous at what after this looks like. Like, when I finish the race, am I going to want to just do it again? Or, what happens when I complete the X and it's time to hand the torch over to the next team? Then what? And I think the answer is just continuing to give guys the opportunity, and maybe I'll jump on the boat too, or do something else epic to fill my own personal void of a constant need for terror for some reason. Yeah.
But I think that's all of us. I think that's ingrained exactly what you just said when we were younger. Like, there's no other fraternity that does this sort of like violent ritual of constantly being in an adrenaline high. And then you grow up through experiencing these crazy things. And I've noticed something in my friends at the earlier age and go into SOF that finished their career in 87 and went to the civilian workforce. It's different. They don't have the same need for the adventure. And I notice that, and I see that. They've had their families, they've settled into becoming members of their community. And that's beautiful and great. And I support that. But there's a difference in us. And like I shared earlier, when your friends start texting you, hey, I want to go do like this incredible hike through the Pacific Northwest, or hey, has anybody thought about going down like the full length of the Mississippi? I'm like, oh, dude, there's a fucking documentary I just watched. Oh, sweet. What about if we did it from like Canada? Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, there's a movie about this guy just did that. It's like, holy shit. Why are we all feeling this drive, this fucking great call to go do something great? And now we're sitting at home thinking like, oh, wait a second. It's because my entire adult life I have chased adventure and had this constant fucking reliable calendar that said at this moment in time, you will go test yourself. And now we don't have that. And it's ingrained in us, and that's okay too. We should be free to acknowledge that and chase it. But it also feels great to do it in a nonprofit way. Like, that's the other great thing. You're not just doing it for the selfish needs. Or like, all right, hun, kids, stay here. I'm going to go adventure by myself and go back to, Afghanistan on my own. No, like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, from where I'm sitting, you can kind of go down this rabbit hole with deployments of like, it can become kind of a selfish thing, right? Because
yeah,
if you've deployed, you know that deployments they're very special things, just because of the place that you're at and the ease and simplicity of life. So that's kind of why we're excited with the courser methodology, because you essentially, you can continue to be like a present member of your family, a present father, uh, you know, be the husband that you want to be, and then also have this mission that you're driving towards. With the charity piece, I want to highlight that. So our heart is really for children who are victims of domestic abuse. We know a lot of those people in our community who've struggled with domestic abuse as children, and then you obviously see kind of how that reverberates throughout their life. And so we partnered with the National Children's Alliance. They're an incredible, after doing a fair amount of due diligence on a lot of different nonprofits, these guys are amazing. They put together what are called Children's Advocacy Centers, or CACs. And these CACs essentially are a streamlined mechanism, so the child only has to tell their story one time. And then the CAC helps to manage the child through talking with SVU detectives and prosecutors and getting trauma-informed care for the rest of their life. So it really just like streamlines it, right? And they do it in all 50 states. They've got a ton of CACs established, and it's meaningful work. So we're super stoked about that partnership, and then, want to see where it goes in the future. But we also want to give flexibility to the teams that we field in the future so that they can kind of have the buy-in that we have around what we're doing, So yeah, it's really cool. We also wanted to, yes, this is 100% for the veterans and veterans first, but we don't necessarily want to give to a veteran charity because we're members of our communities and leaders in our communities and want to contribute to the problems within our communities, was kind of the mindset and thought process.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the other great thing. It's, look, the service to our community, to the community, is having this program, like having this as a viable option to get your purpose and mission back. I think that there's many organizations out there. You just have to sit in front of a computer, Google. This serves the service member and the community, just said. And I couldn't think of a more noble cause. I want to throw it back to you, Chris, though. I want to ask you, what's it like being the operations manager for a nonprofit and going into it with like, hey, okay, I didn't go to the freaking school for this, but I'm going to make it work. I'm going to give it the Green Beret attempt, and I'm going to crush it.
Honestly, some of it's like very natural, right? Like as senior Bravo, like getting captains like close in and like, trying to manage their expectations and like, tamp down some ideas and stuff. Like, to be honest, when Blake hit me up about this, the first thought I had was like, there's going to be 3 captains on this boat and they just want one dude who's enlisted to like down some stuff. So,
you boy.
all that's pretty natural.
It's not 3 captains. There's 2 NCOs and 2 officers. So just be clear.
Yeah. So it is evened out, but I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, oh my God, here we go with this. But
it never ends.
But no, it's been great. Honestly, like officers have they just like build a network, and they just know so many people and know like all these little ins and outs for like different little things that, as an enlisted guy, like, I know a lot of dudes in group. I've been around for a while, but just like, hey, I have this issue. And then Blake's like, oh, talk to so-and-so, this, and that. And they just like, they have that, it's ingrained into them to know everyone. And so that's been like pretty awesome. Plus, just like the little systems that we're using and figuring out some things. Like we were trying to reword stuff. Blake pulls up a program, types some shit in, and then all of a sudden it sounds intelligent person, like type this up. like,
yeah. Can you? I mean, yeah.
I was amazed as as a
Giving all
dumb
my
Bravo. I was
secrets
just
away.
like, whoa, like, oh my god, what is this,
It's
magic?
okay. This is not even a real person. This is all Chat GPT right here with a couple video
Yeah.
overlays.
But
Yeah, that's it, dude.
yeah, it's been awesome, and again, it's like, there's times that we've like put our heads together. It's like, hey man, we need to go in the closet and duke it out real quick over things, and then aside from that, it's also been like very very smooth. It's like natural, and I think it's going to be awesome. Next year getting 4 other guys that are like in my position where it's like, shit, man, I'm about to lose. I'm feeling it now. I hardly ever really have to go to work, so like the team's kind of still going, and I'm just like in the background. And I just like poke my head in every now and again and be like, oh, you should actually teach it this way or do it this way. And then I leave. Where this is just like, it's continuous. And so it definitely feels like I've just moved to, a different ODA, and we're getting shit done to complete our next deployment or mission or whatever. So it's been pretty awesome. I'm like super excited to have 4 guys step into my shoes and be in the same position where me, Blake, and Pete are just over the top of them. Like, hey, what's your charity of choice? All right, cool. Let's set that up. You guys are going to pitch to them. Here's what you should do, and then just kind of like coach them along with that. And I feel like after the row, like Pete, he's like, I'm a little worried about after the row and our involvement and like doing adventurous stuff. I think it's just going to continue, but now we're like we're at the mentor like position,
And there has been, like, to your point, Chris, stakes are high, right? Like, we're having conversations with high net worth individuals, mentors, charities, banks. Chris has been negotiating kind of like our initial community outreach events. So stakes are high and like stress levels are high, and we're also managing a budget, and everyone's stressed because we're not doing it. We're not planning for a mission. Like, this is a whole new set of problems that we're having to learn how to conquer.
Yeah.
And I think that the conflict that, we have is like, that's another thing that's like really good. You know what I mean? Like, it's really good to have conflict, and we have had to like kind of chew each other's ass out and correct each other and have hard conversations, because we're like a high performing team. You know what I mean? And those things are really healthy for me, someone who's transitioning right now. Like, I have to have that because I can't not be direct. You know what I mean? And in the jobs that we're in the civilian world, like, that's not really a thing that you can do, right? You can't really necessarily be as direct as we might normally be. So it's cool, man.
Yeah. I have to ask, have you guys thought about documenting this journey? Being able to record it and have it, because I think this is going to play out like an amazing documentary. Like, this is something that every Green Beret needs to watch and see develop. I can remember before I went and became a warrant officer, there was a time where I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just get out. And there was that fear in the back of my head. It's like, what the fuck am I going to do as a senior Bravo? I haven't done enough yet. Like, if there's a senior Bravo that can see Chris fucking running this and taking this on with like, no, he doesn't have a degree in this. He doesn't have this formal background education that someone could be talking about. No, this motherfucker's smart. He's capable. I'm like, okay, maybe I could do something like this. There's hope for me.
Dude,
like, this is something that I would love to be able to like have.
Well, I gotta say this because this is perfect. So Chris had a problem recently. Chris is planning an event, and he got like minimal registrations in the event. Chris has never planned like a charity fundraising event at a brewery that incorporates local law enforcement and news agencies, right?
Yeah.
Never done this before in his life. And then he's also like resourcing the whole thing and like working through third parties and trying to figure out liability issues, all things that like he's never done as an 18 Bravo. And frankly, I have no time to support him. And so he like puts in all this work, puts out pamphlets, does this entire media campaign. And he's like, oh, dude, like not enough people are showing up. This is such a pain in the ass. Like, I can't figure it out. And then he texts me and Chris, and he's like, okay, so the market is saying, like, literally, this is what he's saying. He's like, so the market is saying that the barrier to entry is too high. Like, guys don't want to, it's a rowing competition, right? Like a public rowing competition at a brewery to raise money and awareness. And he's like, guys don't feel comfortable rowing X amount of minutes and hours. And I think everyone's like overwhelmed because they see like, okay, these are military guys and like, we don't want to go out. And so what he does after like a week of thinking through the problem is he's like, I'm going to put together a social media video. I'm going to try to get like maximum penetration. And I'm going to like basically say, you can be the fat guy who wants to like eat tacos and row like half-assed. You can be the guy who just collects money. And he does this like really hilarious video, pushes it out. He's like, hey, what do you guys think? And I'm like, I'm dying. Like, this is fantastic. Send it out. See if it gets any traction. Sends it out. And then involvement like shoots through the roof.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, I don't know. It was super cool seeing that kind of thing. Just to your point, Danny, I was just like, dude, it's not rocket science. Like, just be creative.
Yeah. If I could push like what it takes to like, we get selected to go out into the woods naked and come out of the woods in a 3-piece suit with 2 chicks on our arm. Right? Like,
what selection did you go through?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
I was naked in Scuba Road, but I didn't come out with chicks.
But we're like thinkers. They want us to go with nothing, come out with everything. Yeah. And so, it's when I talk to dudes, even in the team room, they're like, "Dude, how do you think?" I'm like, "You can figure out anything, man. Like, we are selected for that reason. Like, we can think out problems, and it doesn't need to be." The Alpha, the Warrant, the Zulu. Like, I can stick Junior Bravo in Country X and be like, hey man, here's your resources. Like, this is what I need done, and that dude is gonna get to that solution. At least that's the way he should be. And
he's gonna lose his job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want dudes to come into this knowing like, hey man, it's okay that you don't know how to do it, and you are gonna get frustrated, but in the end, you're gonna come out with something. And you're going to learn a lot. I mean, just from the event that, I'm trying to run, I've learned so much. Like, the next event's just going to be not completely different, but I definitely have some different ways of approaching problem sets than the way this one was. Just because, like, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, Facebook. Okay, this, that. And it's just, I'm just like the Kool-Aid man, just hitting a brick wall and slamming right through it.
Dude, same here, man. Like, when I first started doing this shit, I was like, oh, Microsoft Word to make a meme or something. I don't know. And like, as the years progress, I have fucking all these tools. And then, like, people are like, oh, man, you have an amazing team. I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah. Me. Bravo knowledge, hard work. Like, that's the type of shit that's so rewarding when you look back and you're like, you know what? I'm glad I started the way I'm doing this. I'm glad I started doing this, and I don't have any fucking formal training in it because I have hard work and the ability to search and seek out information and keep trying. Whereas some people that went through and did this degree work and got this amazing education in nonprofit, they might not see it that way. They might see the problem as one dimensional. Big, oh, okay, well, I did it the way that you're supposed to do it, and it's not working. Move on. Oh well. It's like, no, dude, you figure it out. You fucking solve it.
Just keep going until you get through that brick wall, man. That's it.
Exactly. Now, I love the idea of water. But I will say right now, live and on camera, there's no way in hell you're going to get me on a boat to row across the open ocean.
Well, to be fair, that was my reasoning for really wanting to do this. It was like, I love the water. I'm very, very ocean forward. I love scuba diving, all that stuff. But being in the middle of the ocean where there are possible animals that are 80 times your size that could just end you or whatever, or just get swallowed up. But, that scares the shit out of me. But that's like a part of it, right? Like, that's one of the things that is attractive to me is like that scares the shit out of me. But I'm going to go do it and get through it. And maybe it won't be scary anymore, or maybe at the end of it all, I'll be like, never fucking doing that again. That was terrifying. Whatever. But I did it. Like,
but you're challenging people to not only take on something that is deeply powerful and moving and has a connection with charity, but you're also tapping into that. Oh man, I haven't challenged or conquered that fear in me. Mm-hmm. Oh fuck, maybe this is it. Maybe this is that time. There's tons of dudes that will be willing to say, you know what? Okay, because hey. Part of me is like, dude, when are you doing the overland? When's the rucking journey?
Pete, do you want to talk about the row itself and kind of just like paint a picture for guys who may not have Seen it?
Yeah, it's a perfect segue, and you nailed it, Denny. It's the ocean is the greatest equalizer. Anybody can walk on land. Not everybody has the intestinal fortitude to take on that task. Um, the race itself. So first of all, I learned about this race and this sport by accident on vacation a couple of years ago with my wife in Antigua, and it was like the first time that I was able to go on vacation with my wife because the Army denied it just didn't allow for like I literally was in holding in the Q course and asked to go on a honeymoon, and our instructor laughed and said, "Not a chance, dude," was the exact quote, and I'll never forget it. It's like, bro, we're not doing anything for like a month. So this
that
was
is a
like,
quote that needs to go in the book.
Yeah.
It's one of those. There's a few moments in my career where I will never forget the exact words that came out of this person's mouth because the amount of hatred I felt towards them at the moment was on another level. And at the end of the day, it was like, all right, I mean, I'll go tell my wife that, and you know, maybe I should have fibbed how that was worded. I probably would have voted better with her. But anyways, friend of ours invited us out. It was just a vacation, and we had gone to this little portion of Antigua called Admiral's Cove, really cool spot. Admiral Nelson kept his fleet there at one point in time, so there's a lot of infrastructure there that was built for Admiral Nelson in like the 1800s or what have you, forever ago. Saw the boats, and I immediately texted Blake. I was like, dude, we need to do this. And we looked at it. Essentially, we were all still in the Army. It was kind of too big of an ask. And then, long story short, through a SOF veteran transition group, the opportunity presented itself, and we landed with a coach who's done the race before. And he's a Marine vet who was wounded in action and med boarded as a result. So the world's toughest row, they run 2 races annually. One of them's from this little island off the coast of Spain. I forgot what it's called, but it ends in Antigua. The other one is the Pacific, and they actually are in the process right now of finishing their first repetition at that. The race is 2,800 miles. It goes from Monterey, California to one of the most western islands in Hawaii. It's Kauai. And it takes, for a team of 4, it'll take guys that are relatively fit about 40 days. We intend to do it around 30. The world record was just beaten the other week, like a week ago, for 29 days and 17 hours, something like that. And but the longest anybody's done it is 147 days, and that was I want to say a single. So the race can be done in teams of, I think, 1 through 5 or 1 through 6, but the boats are really designed to have 4 people on them. I haven't seen a six person boat, but there's certainly at least one 5-person team out there. Waves can get anywhere from flat glass to 30 to 40 feet. You're 100% self-supporting, right? So you don't get care packages along the way. You have to pack, I think we estimated roughly 5 million calories worth of food, and all of your trash has to get packed out with you. They count it at the end to show that you're not dumping weight into the ocean. The boats themselves, it's literally a rowboat, and most people, I'm sure everybody listening to this call has probably never even seen one, but it looks like a rowboat. However, on either side there's a cabin that one person can fit in, and I've laid down in them. It's like literally you lay on your back and your legs are going under the sides of the boat, so you have no space to like roll around or anything. They have all of the standard like kind of sat capabilities that a normal maritime vessel would have. So Garmin satellite GPS tracking, several different forms of communication to remain within international maritime standards and the safety standards for the race. The boats have an auto tiller on them. So this is a common question we get. So you set an azimuth, and essentially as long as you're rowing, the tiller on that is going to push you in the proper direction. That being said, the more aggressive the seas get, the more difficult it is to maintain that piece of equipment. If that breaks, a lot of teams have quit in the past because manually steering for 30 days is very difficult, if not impossible to do while you're out there on the ocean. The other thing is, generally speaking, our team is really, this is a personal goal of mine, but I'm trying to get us to change this scheme of maneuver. But generally speaking, on a team of 4, you'll have 2 people rowing for 2 hours and then 2 people resting for 2 hours. And that's a 24-hour cycle. So you think about that, your 2-hour break is your time to eat, sleep, use the restroom, priority to work when it comes to maintenance on the boat, etc. So one of the greatest challenges that I see is just a sheer lack of sleep. Ranger school style, if you watch the documentaries, you'll see people talking about hallucinating and whatnot. And our team wants to change that to like a 3 or 4 hour cycle, which comes with a tremendous burden because you have to be able to row for that long, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
But if we kind of see that as an advantage, is we can suck more than most people can because we've been pushed to that limit before. Everybody on this call has felt what it feels like to have not slept for more than 3 hours for 10 days straight, or 20 days straight, or 30 days, 60 days if you did Ranger school. So that's the general gist. I will say that a lot of hesitation from individuals comes from the safety aspect. The boats are designed to be self-righting, so if it flips upside down, it will flip back over. And the race committee, the company that runs this thing, has extremely strict safety standards. And the safety team, one of them is our coach. The other guys, they're all former military dudes that have done this. One of them's crossed the Indian Ocean. All of them have crossed the Atlantic. And it's a really cool community. They're military from different countries, like UK. I want to say there's a Dane in there, and then our coach, Evan, U.S. Marine vet. But the safety crew seems to all be veterans. And so they do a very serious safety inspection. There's independent safety inspection requirements. There's maritime safety, sea survival, all these different course requirements that you have to do. You also have to do a 36-hour row as a team before you're allowed to go out and do the race. So it's actually a lot safer than you think, or that you would think, or somebody else would kind of assume.
Yeah, the boat itself looks like a high-speed, futuristic missile with 2 cockpits at the end.
Right? Yeah.
But not a lot of space.
Not a lot of space at all. And the other thing, another question we get all the time. So the boat has a water maker on it, so it turns seawater into fresh water. That's what you use to clean yourself and drink. And then when you're using the bathroom, people use a bucket and then clean it out. So those are kind of the questions we get all the time. Where do you take a shit? In a bucket. And you dump it overboard, dude. Which honestly,
of everyone
in Ranger school, I'd rather shit. I mean, you don't shit in a bucket in the center of a patrol base. So these are all things that we've experienced on land, and that's why we think this crew, and really veterans writ large, are well suited to do this race. The race committee, their goal, and they're currently on track to make this goal, is above a 90% success rate in teams getting across the ocean. They do have 1 or 2 safety vessels that will position themselves kind of center mass of the whole group. And they'll poke in on you every once in a while. So they make it a priority to at least get one photo of you, of your team, in the center of the Pacific Ocean. So when you finish, you have this really cool photo of this is me in the middle of the Pacific Ocean rowing with my boys. So you can imagine the singles, they take a hell of a lot longer to do it. So the spread is pretty wide. But you can go on World's Toughest Row right now and track the boats and see where they are. A couple have just recently finished, and the race committee is down there in Kauai right now receiving boats as they come in. But really cool adventure, totally attainable for the average person. You don't have to be a rower. You don't even really have to know boats. And I can tell a story of, one circumstance that went very poorly, and I got to meet the guy that was a part of that. But they do quite a bit to mitigate risk on this. And our risk mitigation is we're bringing orca snacks so that if the angry pot of orcas shows up, we'll win rapport, dude, the Green Beret way.
Yeah.
Nice little treats. Hey, buddy, don't bite my boat or sink us.
Yeah, these are dangerous times. The weather patterns and orcas are now attacking you.
Hey, orcas, go take down who's ever in the lead, bro. We're on your team.
Dude, I have to ask, what's the train up like? What are some of the things that guys going into this have to start doing? I mean, I am by no means a great rower. I utilize my row machine downstairs as part of my train up, but my weekly row regiment probably is nowhere near what it needs to be in order to accomplish his feet.
Yeah. I mean, so we went through Thor for our first iteration, right? obviously they do this for a living. They'll do the research and they'll give us what we need to do. So it was a lot of that first month was a lot of lifting, a lot of running, and then like a lot of almost like sprint works or like intervals with the rower, and that's just to get your like cardio up and your strength up. But like honestly, the thing that we've been doing the most is just getting on the rower, keeping our heart rates down, and just rowing for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then keeping ourselves honest with, you know, hey, what's your wattage look like? Or, you know, what was your distance today or whatever. And if a dude's just like, oh, yeah, I did 5K, it's like, dude, 5K is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like, and me and Blake talked about this earlier, too. It was just like, I remember getting on and just rowing as fast as you could for 1,000 meters, like, and just like, just to warm up for a workout or something was like garbage. You hated it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, if I only do 1K, I might as well have not even looked at my rower at all.
Yeah. So Chris is our training manager for our physical fitness plan. He's also, his wife is like a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and all that stuff. So she's also
awesome,
totally contributing in like how we're sourcing a lot of our nutrition, and they're iterating on like multiple tests right now. We recently had a 12-hour row where we would do 2 on 2 off for 12 hours, like basically a simulated row. And then we were also testing some like different supplements to see what was feasible on the ocean. But where we're at right now in this current iteration of training, because we're kind of like doing it in 2-month blocks. It's 4 row days a week, 4 lift days a week. And the rows are going to be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours at a time. You're trying to stay between like 17 and 20 strokes per minute, focusing on like actual ocean rowing form where you're dropping the rower down and sliding it along your knees to kind of like simulate picking up the oars. And then you're keeping your heart rate anywhere between like 135, 145. Because if you do 2 hours at 155 on a rower, like you're going to be garbage for the next
Which
10.
is like what we did on that 12-hour row is the first two iterations we did. Me and Blake just went ham on the rower for 2 hours straight. And then that last one was like, dude, this is going to be rough. But then you just get on there and you keep the low heart rate and you're pulling good strokes. You've got good form. You can honestly just sit on there for a really long time and just keep going. Like the worst that you really get if you're monitoring your heart rate, you're monitoring like how many strokes you're going per minute and everything else is like your ass, which is just, it is what it is. You buy a cushion and you just learn, your body gets used to it after a while or whatever. But that first 12-hour, we do nothing except for we've been working out for a month, so let's go. And we just fucking smoked ourselves. Like it's 2-hour iteration. Even our coach was like, dudes, like you're not.
You'd have to imagine it's like hard. It's like Step Brothers because you have that friendship, that bond for being on a team together, and it's just like, fuck it, go ham.
Like, honestly, it's like any ruck or run you do with the team where like, hey guys, let's keep it light. And then you're jogging next to someone, and then he goes faster, and you go faster. Next thing you know, you both are like holding hands and puking at the finish line, and you're like, "What the fuck, man? We were supposed to run like slow." And that's kind of what it's
every team room.
It's every team room every morning. If you, dude,
nice slow jog.
My team sergeant was all about team PT, like pretty regularly. And it was always every morning, I was like, dude, this is going to suck so bad because no matter how easy they say it's going to be, the young dudes are going to try to prove themselves. And then the older dudes and the leaders are going to be like, okay, well, I also have to prove myself. And then it ends up being like an absolute just sleigh fest. And I was in Colorado too. So we were always going up the incline and like these long runs. We had a really heavy like running endurance team, which I'm more of a lifter myself, but I was fast for a time there because it was like, if you fall behind, it's just your credibility can be gone as a team leader.
You just get shit on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't want. Nobody wants that.
For a team leader, you have to be Captain America. There's no other standard. It's like, fuck, dude.
Exactly. When I showed up to the 75th as a young lieutenant, we went out to do a unit-wide 12-mile ruck with like the standard weight, right? It was a Ranger standard, and where I thrive in rucks, I walk fast, and everybody takes off running, but I always finish in like the top 10%. I remember I'm walking along, everybody takes off running, and my first sergeant and my platoon sergeant, who I just met, both savage dudes with tons of time overseas, they come running up next to me, and I hear my platoon sergeant go, "Oh my fucking God, dude." And it was like regarding me being towards the back because they were trying to hold the rear. It's like, all right, dude, I see how this is going to go. So it's like, just run 12 miles with a rucksack and go home and like lick my wounds. But it's the only way. You have to just destroy yourself. And that's frankly probably going to be one of our challenges is we are bred to destroy ourselves at all times. However, I also see it as an advantage as well because most of these other teams have never experienced like true bodily pain and then enduring through that day in and day out over and over and over again. And that's why I was telling the race team when I was out there in Monterey for the start about a month ago, it's like, that's our advantage. Like shitting in a bucket, dude, like that's a luxury. You get a bucket. It's not a dirty hole. And then
no, just like, dude, my whole body being chafed all the time. Yeah, I'm pretty used to that.
Yeah.
And the great thing is no one has to pull security. It's
yeah, no.
It's
nobody's
literally, it's gonna be like, so we're currently negotiating getting the boat, right? And we're working through different COAs with different vendors, looking at like lease options, all things that I did not do as a Green Beret. So again, huge learning experience, but looking to have the boat down in Charleston in the next couple months. And I'm really excited for us to start doing iterations. We'd like to do like from Lake Marion. Denny, I don't know how familiar you are with like South Carolina geography, but Lake Marion out to Charleston and go through the lock system would be super cool.
Yeah.
But it's basically, man, it's like, it's going to be a mixture between living on a spaceship and being in a patrol base. Like that's what it is. So we're super stoked, and I can't think of a cooler group of dudes to be with for that.
Now, when you put it in those terms, when you say spaceship, now I'm back in. I just have to put it through the
yeah, dude. Come on, man.
I'm in.
I didn't think of it as a spaceship. I'm thinking of it more like being on a raft, but I guess if I reframe that in my own brain, it'll be a little more exciting.
Look, a lot of us Green Berets are sci-fi nerds. You just gotta look, man. It's the closest thing you'll ever get to being in a spaceship.
I think
really crowded
in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of space.
I think washing machine, because the moment a wave just slams into us while we're like all like hunkering down for a storm, and me and Blake are just tumbling on top of each other, or me and Peter, whoever ends up in the cabin with me, just getting beat up. That's what I picture.
No.
And going back to your question on training, I will say that if you talk to the people that have done it before, or the people that run the race, who, I actually am assuming they've all done it, they'll tell you that you're already physically fit enough to do this. It's not really a test of physical fitness. For us, the reason we're training so much is because the faster you go, the less amount of time you're sitting on a boat in the ocean. Two, we do want to compete to try to win, although that's not our primary goal. Our primary goal is to complete the race. And that's why we're training physically so much, but really it's a test of grit. It's a test of being able to like suffer every single day. And then, the obvious isolation aspect of it. But again, these are all things that ODAs and SOF and anybody who's worn a pack and been in the woods in the military, that's what we do. And you know how it is. You start making jokes about food or, whatever. There's always 1 to 5 movies that are quoted constantly for like a week before that gets old. Step Brothers, like you mentioned, is one of them. But really where the important training comes in is figuring out your nutrition plan. Having a succinct team goal is actually the advice I was given. That's kind of the primary one. Like they use the term, there's excursion teams and then there's race teams. There's teams that are out there for the adventure. They're not really trying to get to the finish line any particular speed. Those teams will like jump in the water when a school of dolphins comes up. They'll go snorkeling. Like they'll kind of like relish in the moment. And then there's teams that are trying to get there as fast as possible. So we are actually, I would consider us a race team. There's certainly an aspect of the experience that we want to enjoy, but we're going to try to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. And really the big part of that is strategy. Like how, what do we want our daily battle rhythm to look like? Maintaining discipline, just like you would in a patrol base. You don't let your foxhole get messy. Like if you don't take your boots off and leave them somewhere. It's kind of like maintaining that level of discipline combined with the grit that we all know what that feels like in our line of work, and just doing that day in and day out until you win. And as challenges present themselves, you just kind of figure it out, Yeah. And I think that's, from a training perspective, that's kind of where our focus is. I've started this already, and the team we're all going to be kind of getting on like flat water rowers, in rivers and lakes. I'm here in Texas. The Fort Worth Rowing Club kind of sponsored me and us by allowing us to be members for free. And the coach for Texas Christian University, a dude named Peter, is an awesome guy. He's been meeting with me like once a week at 5:00 in the morning, teach me the fundamentals of the sport. And it's a lot more difficult on those boats because they tip over really easy.
Yeah.
So some of that kind of technique work will certainly, here in the next couple months, we'll start linking up on our boat and getting out on the water and, rowing against the wind at different angles, trying to get into some foul weather if we can safely to experience the rough sea state and everything. And I think that's all just more of like feeling what it feels like. And anybody who's grown up in a maritime environment or on boats knows that the direction in which your vessel is pointing into the wind makes a huge difference on your progress. So there's some training involved there that I think we could benefit from. But at the end of the day, when I heard about this race, when I learned about it, I was standing on an island in Antigua, and I'm talking to this dude who just finished, and I was like, "So what's the deal? Are you guys rowers?" He's like, "No, man, we just sent it. Like, it was just fucking send it." So I think we're doing a lot more to cover our bases than most teams will. And frankly, our greatest hurdle is getting that initial startup cost, because for us, it isn't about the race. It's about the longevity and the legacy of what we're trying to build here. And we see a critical piece of that is purchasing the boat for ownership. And right now there's really only one company that makes them. They're pretty expensive. And, where we need to focus our efforts is on the more institutional donors that can get behind our mission, that could help us with the initial startup costs. And that's where like a majority of our effort goes. And frankly, that eats into a lot of the workout time and the training time, especially in the last couple of weeks, because I know these two guys here have spent some time in 4th Battalion, but it's very much like developing that network, massaging it, establishing rapport, finding out creative ways to ask for a lot of things from people. And that's kind of what we're focusing on now.
Yeah. When's the launch date, gentlemen?
So this past year, it was June 12th, but the race is looking at pushing it to the right a little bit, because the first week or two for the teams that went out, the weather was pretty terrible and still pretty cold up there in Northern California. So for planning purposes, we're saying July 1st, ballpark July 1st.
Oh man, that's going to be great to put on the calendar and see your guys' progress.
You should come out.
Dudes, I am fully invested in this. I want to help. I want to promote you. I want to ask, how can we sponsor? How can anybody join the mission and provide to the cause? What do we have to do to get people to support Corsair Racing? How can we get more involvement?
Yeah, so we've got a couple different lines of effort here. We have networking and fundraising events that Chris is putting together. Our first one is August 5th in Pensacola, Florida, which we're pretty excited about. And you can find information about that on our Facebook, Instagram, and also on our website. The other thing is just determining media opportunities to get our message out. We had a pretty interesting discovery call this morning. In between work meetings, we're shifting stuff around to just continue to push everything forward there. And then really financial support. We are not an accredited 501c3 yet. But we've submitted all of our documentation in Form 1023 to the IRS. And so we're waiting for that to come through in the next couple weeks. But all of our donations that have occurred up until now, we'll be looking to send out receipts for them to be tax exempt donations. So,
heck yeah.
And then to kind of follow back, we've had a couple discovery calls with marketing and advertising agencies, and then recently with a film producer who's looking at like fronting the cost of putting together a documentary, with the hopes of like selling it. So that was interesting. We'll see where that goes. But if there are people out there that are interested in connecting or seeing how they can help, they can reach us. Probably the easiest way to reach us is anyway. Like Chris manages the Facebook, I manage the website, and Pete and his wife manage our Instagram. So you can
Well,
find
even on
contact
the website at
there.
www.courserracing.com, you can just
Mhm.
go just below the initial homepage, and it's like, want to support, contact us, and then you have a brief description, what your email is, and it kicks to us, and then we can like read through it, and then if someone's like, hey man, like I don't really have the money, but I can definitely film and edit this whole thing and be out there and make a good product, then that's like, we're down to clowns, so to speak. Like we'll talk it out. I mean,
Anything.
we're starting out, so it's not like we can just throw money at any of our problems. We really have to like build relationships and connect.
Absolutely, and that's a great thing about podcasts, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I think the only other thing is like we're looking to start to build out our 2025 rosters. So guys that are interested, please reach out and let's like start the conversation and see if we're a fit and you're a fit.
Absolutely, and I'd like to throw my hat to purchase the first poop bucket, courtesy of Security Halt. As long as
There
I
we
get
go.
to put my sticker on there, just throwing it out there. Throwing it out there. Feel free to throw it back.
You want it? You got it, Denny.
Yes.
Dude, we've been looking for a
Sold.
reliable poop bucket sponsor, so
Dude,
this is a big win for us.
I happen to know a great one. I'm very to the Home Depot bucket or the Lowe's bucket. Probably
Nice.
Lowe's bucket will match a little better. But man, I'm excited
Yeah, I think
for
the
this.
orange bucket would be the best, just so that when we're like holding on to it, when our boat's like sunk, that people can see us from up top.
It's a safety tool as well.
Yeah,
Oh God,
just go with orange, not blue.
Yeah. Okay, so this is happening. I just need an actual physical address. I will send you a bucket with our sticker on it. But no, I of course will love to advocate and share and throw you guys on our website. Hey, whatever I can do, man, because this is something that you're just not even participating. You're giving me that feeling of excitement. I know other SOF professionals are going to hear this and feel that excitement and that passion burning in their chest for doing something great. Blake, Chris, Pete, thank you so much for being here today. This is fucking phenomenal. I am so amped. I hope that we can continue and keep in touch and then do another episode when we're closer to that launch date, man. And be there,
really
be able to
special.
record.
That'd be really special. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Love
sure.
it.
Oh, man. Awesome. Well,
Yeah, and thanks for having us. This is huge, Denny. I mean, getting our name out is a top priority, but also coming out onto a podcast that focuses so much on the mental health challenges that we all go through when we get out, and some of us are learning that, myself included, for the first time recently, is huge for us. And I'd also say, like, to anybody listening, like, check on your boys, like, check on your buddies, and this is cliche and we all say it, but I'll give you my cell phone number if it means that you just get on the phone and talk, because too many of us are struggling to the point where they don't even realize the implications of taking their own life and how that impacts their community. It's because of how hard these dudes are hurting, dudes and gals, I should say. So I really appreciate everything you do as well for our community.
Absolutely. And again, like we shared earlier, it doesn't take you don't have to put this grand amount of money or create anything greater than just a text thread. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to the brothers that you went through and built an amazing fucking career with. We all get in those slumps of depression and want to disconnect from the world. Something as simple as a text thread with 3 of your friends or 4 of your friends where you reach out to each other every morning. Just say, hey, man, how you doing? Have a great day. Hey, guys, I love you. Have a great day. We survived some of the most crazy, perilous times together, and it only strengthens our brotherhood and our bond when we're willing to at least engage every morning. So please take care of each other, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.